There comes a moment, quiet and unannounced, when a person simply slips out of the world they once moved through every day. No dramatic goodbye, no final message, just a slow fading that no one notices until the silence becomes too loud to ignore. It happens in the middle of ordinary life while conversations remain unfinished, plans sit untouched, and people still assume they're okay. The truth is, disappearing never begins on the outside. It begins deep, within them, long before anyone sees it. A mind stretched too thin, a heart carrying more weight than it admits, a soul exhausted from pretending to be present when it hasn't felt alive in months. The vanishing point is not a moment of escape, it is a moment of surrender, a quiet collapse where they choose absence because presence has become too heavy to bear. People who disappear without warning often carry a weight no one can see. It's not a single event that breaks them, but a quiet accumulation of everything they never said out loud. They choose silence because explaining their pain feels harder than enduring it. Words fail them not because the story is too complicated, but because it is too personal, too tangled, too raw. They fear being misunderstood more than being alone. So they retreat. They shrink their presence until it becomes easier to vanish than to reveal what hurts. The world assumes they are distant, cold, or careless, but inside, they are drowning in emotions they cannot organize into language. Silence becomes their shield. Disappearing becomes the only space where the noise stops. The pressure lifts, and for a moment, they can breathe without performing strength. There is a point when the human nervous system stops fighting and simply collapses into stillness. This is the freeze response, silent, misunderstood, and often mistaken for disinterest. People who disappear don't always choose to walk away. Sometimes their bodies choose for them. Burnout doesn't arrive loudly. It creeps in through sleepless nights, emotional overwhelm, and the constant pressure to hold themselves together. Eventually, the system shuts down to protect them. They withdraw not because they don't care, but because their mind can no longer process one more demand, one more message, one more expectation. Their silence is a biological survival mode, a temporary escape from a world that feels too fast, too loud, too heavy. Disappearing becomes the only place where they can stop absorbing everything. In the freeze, they are not running, they are simply trying to survive themselves. For many who disappear, the deepest fear isn't abandonment, it's being a burden. They convince themselves that their sadness is too heavy, their needs too inconvenient, their presence too demanding. Even when no one has said it, they feel it. Every unanswered text becomes proof. Every tired sigh from someone else becomes a warning. So they pull away before anyone can confirm the fear they already live with. They believe distancing themselves protects the people they care about. In their mind, absence is kindness. Silence is safety. They vanish not because they don't want connection, but because they think connection hurts others. Their disappearance is an apology they never say out loud. You're better off without the weight of me. Withdrawal often begins long before adulthood. For many who disappear, the roots lie in childhood, where love felt unpredictable, attention came with conditions, and emotional safety was never guaranteed. This is the birthplace of avoidant attachment. They learned early that relying on others leads to disappointment, and expressing needs leads to rejection. So they built a silent armor, self-protection through distance. Whenever relationships get too close, too real, or too vulnerable, the old wound awakens. Their nervous system whispers the same message from childhood: you're safer alone. Disappearing becomes their instinctive way of preserving themselves, a survival behavior mistaken for coldness. They don't withdraw because they don't care, they withdraw because caring feels dangerous. To them, closeness is a risk, and vanishing is the only familiar safety they trust. Shame is the quiet shadow that drives many people into disappearance. It's not the kind of shame others can see, it's the internal kind, the one that whispers they are flawed at the core. They believe something about them is broken, unlovable, or fundamentally wrong. This shame grows in silence, feeding on every past mistake, every failed attempt, every moment they felt not enough. And because shame hates exposure, it pushes them to hide. They avoid messages, cancel plans, and distance themselves before anyone notices the cracks they've been trying to conceal. To them, vanishing feels safer than being truly seen. They fear that if people looked closely, they would confirm the very judgment they already carry inside. So they disappear, not out of avoidance, but out of a desperate attempt to protect others from their unworthy self. The people who disappear first are often the ones everyone calls strong. They are the ones who listen without asking for anything, who hold others together while quietly falling apart themselves. Strength becomes their identity, their role, their silent obligation. But the truth is, strong people break differently. They don't cry for help. They don't warn anyone. They simply reach a point where holding everything in becomes unbearable and they vanish. Their collapse happens in silence because they were never taught how to be vulnerable. They fear disappointing others more than they fear losing themselves. So instead of showing their pain, they retreat into isolation, hoping no one sees them unravel. Their disappearance is not weakness, it is exhaustion, a final, private surrender from someone who carried too much for too long, until disappearing felt like the only place left to fall. Emotional exhaustion rarely announces itself. It builds quietly, layer by layer, in people who keep showing up even when they're running on nothing. They laugh at the right moments, reply just enough to seem fine, and carry their heaviness behind practiced smiles. No one sees the slow unraveling inside them, the way simple tasks become mountains, the way conversations feel draining, the way their heart feels heavier each day. Burnout doesn't explode, it erodes. And by the time others sense something is wrong, the person is already gone. Their disappearance looks sudden, but it's the final step of a long, hidden collapse. When the world keeps taking and they keep giving, silence becomes the only place left to breathe. They vanish not out of choice, but because their inner flame has dimmed beyond recognition. For some people, disappearing is not an ending, it's a rebirth. They dream of starting over in a place where no one knows their history, their mistakes, or the version of themselves they learn to perform. The desire to reset comes from a deep psychological longing, the wish to escape an identity that no longer feels like theirs. They want freedom from the expectations that have shaped them, the roles that have trapped them, and the relationships that remind them of who they used to be. In their mind, a new place means a new self, one unburdened by old memories, old wounds, and old versions of themselves. The fantasy of disappearing becomes a silent promise. If I leave everything behind, maybe I can finally become who I was meant to be. It's not escape, it's the desperate pursuit of inner rebirth. People who disappear rarely leave a goodbye message because the emotions driving their exit are too tangled to express. Guilt tells them they owe an explanation. Fear tells them they'll be judged for it. And emotional paralysis makes forming even a single sentence feel impossible. They imagine every goodbye will open a door to conversations they don't have the strength to walk through. So silence becomes their escape. A message feels too final, too revealing, too vulnerable. Some believe their departure won't matter. Others fear it will matter too much. In both cases, the goodbye remains unwritten. Disappearing without a word is not about disrespect, it's about survival. It's the only way they can leave without collapsing under the weight of their own emotions. When someone disappears, the world around them divides into two quiet groups. There are the few who feel the absence immediately, the ones who notice their pauses, their fading energy, the subtle cries hidden in their laughter. These people replay old messages, check their last scene, and wonder what they missed. Their grief is personal, heavy, and full of unanswered questions. Then there are the ones who never noticed anything at all. To them, the person was background, noise present but overlooked, visible but unseen. Their silence goes unregistered, their absence unmarked, and this contrast cuts the deepest. It exposes the loneliness that lived inside them long before they vanished. Being missed by some and forgotten by others reveals the truth they carried. They moved through life, half invisible, half remembered, never fully understood. Their disappearance simply made the invisibility impossible to ignore. For some people, disappearing is not an escape, it is a last line of defense. When the world becomes too loud, when expectations stack too high, and when their inner wounds open faster than they can heal, silence becomes the only space that doesn't demand anything from them. Disappearing feels like protection because it removes them from the pressures that keep breaking them. It lets them breathe without performing, exist without explaining, and feel without being watched. Their withdrawal is a sanctuary carved out of exhaustion. In their quiet absence, they aren't trying to punish anyone. They aren't seeking attention. They're trying to survive the storm within their own mind. Disappearing becomes a temporary cocoon, a place where they can gather the shattered parts of themselves without judgment. And when they return, if they return, it's rarely because the pain is gone, but because they've finally found the strength to face the world again, piece by fragile piece.